Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our adult literacy program at Sunshine Coast Libraries. Little history before we go anywhere. We've been doing this for a bit over 25 years. We started in a very small way, apparently, before I was even there, with one part-time staff member and a few volunteer tutors. And we've moved to what we are today. We have 3 specialist staff. We have a workforce of volunteer tutors who we train ourselves. And about 15 years ago, we thought it would be a very good idea if we became a registered training organisation. And one of the things I've been asked to talk about today is the model we use and why we are in fact a registered training organisation. Up until the middle of last year, we were always able to get funding from state or federal governments, but as you now know, we're living in times of austerity, and no matter what the stats say, from PIAC or wherever, there's no funding around to assist people with low literacy, really. Oops, I'll just turn it off. We offer a flexible literacy program and literacy numeracy and digital literacy for adults within our whole Sunshine Coast community to assist them to become functionally literate. And that just means that they have enough skills that they can cope by themselves independently, whether it's reading to their grandchildren or filling out the dreaded Centrelink form. We're the only public library in Queensland that actually has this program, so we're often asked questions. In fact, I just had a question today from another library in New South Wales. That makes 2 who are starting up an adult literacy program. We, as I said, are an RTO. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Mainly for 2 reasons, but one, we do offer accredited training to both our literacy students and to our volunteer tutors. We have, as I said, a specialist staff, and all our tutors are volunteers trained by ourselves. Everything we do is to benefit our students, and you'll see as I go through the PowerPoint, you'll see various of our students posing. This young man, by the way, an 18-year-old who could only write his name when he left school, has now started reading his first book, which is John Marsden's Tomorrow When the War Began. And he even gave up morning tea bickies for that. I couldn't drag him out of it. We certainly need to have the right staff to support our program. Without the right staff, the program would probably fall on its head. Why are we an RTO, a registered training organisation? As a library, we're a not-for-profit organisation, and so we're unusual because we are not a business as such. We're not a registered training organisation to be a business. We have to find money either in our own library budget or through external grants. And at the moment, I'm here to tell you there is actually no money anywhere to be found, and don't think we haven't been looking. But hopefully it's a cyclical thing and may come back again, because the need to help people isn't going to go away. We also wanted really good volunteer tutors, and initially when we were doing training elsewhere, we weren't always happy with the quality of tutor we were getting, and that was one reason I think that we became an RTO, so that we could control our own training. We could train the tutors to be exactly what we wanted them to be, and to be of most use to us and to the students in the program. Oh, there I go again, sorry. Why are we part of a library service? And why is an RTO part of a library service? A registered training organisation situated in a library service, as I said, is unusual, and it's bang right in the middle of a community. People can access training for free in the middle of their local community. Libraries have facilities that you are required to provide as an RTO. They already have meeting rooms. There is equipment. Libraries have PCs, iPads and other such items, laptops, that we use extensively in our program. We also have been building up for many years dedicated adult literacy collections, and people do often visit us to see exactly what we've got. And as someone, I think you mentioned before, the problem with giving an adult a book about it with the pictures of a clown in it, we don't do that. There are specific books that are written for adults, at lower levels, and so we've been building up collections of those over time, because it's important not to make someone who already feels bad about themselves and thinks they're stupid because they can't read. It's important to give them something that confirms that we really believe they are an adult. We also have access, as I said, to technology, and this is one of our classes using equipment. It's the local Biwa library. As most of our students in the literacy program are marginalised, they don't have access at home to the internet, or they don't have a computer or a laptop or an iPad. They often do have a mobile phone, which they can't use. So the mobile phone will accompany them to class, and the terrifying question is, can you help me use it? So we have to keep training our tutors in keeping up with technology. That's another thing we have to keep in mind. So we want our students to be comfortable enough with the technology the rest of us take for granted, that they can use it without having to ask for help all the time. So that's one of the things we're doing in class, encouraging them to use that digital material so that it just becomes like picking up a pen. The benefits to us of being an RTO is that we can offer accredited training to our literacy students, and in particular to our volunteer tutors. I don't know how many of you work with volunteers, but volunteers are a special group of people. They are willing to give up their time, but they choose what they want to do. They're not out there in the workforce applying for the first job that comes along. They pick something they really want to do. And if you ask them to do a training course, the first question they'll want to say, they'll ask you is it accredited? Because I think if they're going to give up the time to do that, then there should be something, at least a certificate that at the end of it, that they could transfer across to another volunteer organisation, if they shift. We do. I wish to thank Tasmania. We got a tutor from the Link program because they retired up to the Sunshine Coast, so we're very grateful. Please send more up. As I said, we can give our own certificates. And it's certainly an advantage when you're applying for funding, because in the world of adult literacy, any sniff of funding that is around is connected to you giving accredited training. So one of the reasons we put ourselves through what can often be pain in being a registered training organisation is to give us that advantage when and if funding actually pops up its head. And if it does, we'll be the first to know. It gives us advantage in referrals from job placement agencies in our local areas. We form strong connections with them, and we get quite a few students who come through those job placement agencies, not because they have to, but because they want help, and the job placement agencies know we're there, and we work with them. The agencies that don't work with us, we quickly cut ties with them because it doesn't work. Because if we're working with their client, there's other things happening, so we need to work in tandem to get the best outcome for that client. It also gives us a slightly more professional look to say that we are a registered training organisation. Our volunteer tutors are the core of our program, and if we don't get that right, we don't get anything right. So, as I've said, they often would like to know that the training they do is accredited. They're the backbone of our workforce. They offer their time and expertise for free, and most of our retirees on the coast are retired professionals. So some of their questions can be very spot on. We have to be on our toes all the time. They are fantastic library supporters, which is an added benefit to the library they're working out of. They'll turn up for anything that's happening at the library, bring their friends, bring their students, and the nicest thing is to see someone who could only write their name in 6 months, they're borrowing books and things from the library. So that is a reward for the library service. We've made them, they're comfortable coming in and out. They're always open to new learning, that's something we're looking for, and they become part of a network of volunteers in the Sunshine Coast Council. There was approximately 1,800 volunteers across the council last year. And we don't want much in our tutors. There's a few things that we look for. Patience. And the one thing on the bottom is something that we always say if you can't see humour in something, well, sorry, we don't really want you. Because some people's lives are so difficult and so sad, we've got to be able to find something to laugh about or we'd all go rather mad. So certainly there's a list of the little things we want our tutors to have before we take them into the program. When they finish, we want them to have enough skills that they can operate any equipment that they need to use with their students. And recently we've just had library staff, for instance, doing training on Android tablets for our tutors that are interested and that have students with Android tablets, and then we'll do one on iPads and iClouds for them. So for that statistic with people's ability dropping off with age, it may be changing in the Sunshine Coast because we're upskilling them. We want them to fully understand their role and their responsibilities to the program and to their students, because I think if anyone working in the area would be aware that confidentiality is something you have to really be strict about. People's lives can be in a huge mess, and most of our students, before we do any work with them about literacy, we often have to spend a couple of months building up their self-esteem and their self-confidence, because most people with very low literacy have some sort of depression because they feel they're not a worthy person, and that can get them into all sorts of other problems, into a spiral of relationships with the wrong sort of person, not being able to hold down jobs. Often they move further into other mental illnesses, so you're dealing with that as well. So you've got to go past all those barriers before you can actually get to the nitty-gritty of helping them with their literacy. And we want to actively match them with a student in our program. What does it mean to us to be an RTO? It means we have to be compliant with the national overseeing body, ASQA, Australian, now I've forgotten, because I deliberately don't want to remember, I've just had a blank. But basically, they have upped the level. Registration used to exist in different state bodies, but now it's all been combined together under a federal group, and it's made it very hard for registered training organisations. And the other thing they've done is not just double their fees, but triple their fees. And the amount of paperwork has increased. I'd be lying if I didn't say that these things have happened. There has been an enormous backlash from registered training organisations, most of whom are small businesses, and I think some changes might come in over the next 12 months. It does mean we have to become familiar with the vet industry, but that's no bad thing, because we become aware of what jobs are out there, what people want to do training in, and certainly we're very aware of the changing demographic in our own region, possibly before anyone else. We're very aware that our youth unemployment is extremely low on the Sunshine Coast. Most of us with children who have any sort of education have to move away and work elsewhere. So those that stay frequently don't get jobs, and so that's another problem that we have to deal with. It's not just people having holidays. We can, as an RTO, partner with other organisations. We could charge them fees, for example, to provide training for tutors, which we have in the past done with NERSA, and the Caloundra Community Centre, who runs a small literacy program as well. We can partner with other RTOs who do something similar, or in Queensland now we have this program called Certificate 3 Guarantee. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. And that some training organisations offer courses at Certificate 3 level, but part of the funding that they get for that is that they agree to help the person get through the course if they have some identified difficulty, and often it's literacy and numeracy. We haven't at this point, but I know other literacy groups have had agreements with other training organisations to do the literacy and numeracy training for the Certificate 3 people who are struggling. I'm not sure how this Certificate 3 thing will be going into the future, because I've seen a few people now who've somehow got a Certificate 3 and don't really understand what they really trained in. So I think it needs to be looked at rather closely. Our staff do need to be qualified trainers. In the world of training, a teaching qualification is not equal to a separate training qualification. So you all need to have, our staff all need to have a current certificate in training and assessment. Otherwise, we can't sign off on the assignments and work that our students do. We have to be continually reviewing the material we use in our courses, which is part of our job as being an RTO, but it does mean we can be incredibly current. And we need to make sure that our staff have regular PD to keep them up to date with what's happening in training. And we need to source other RTOs to do something similar so that we can have validation meetings to see if we're marking along the similar courses, if we're marking on the same level. What would the future be for us? We could expand the scope. The scope of an RTO is the number of courses that you have. We have 2 courses only at the moment, but we could add to that. And in this program at the moment, we don't have a need to do that. But within council itself, we've started some preliminary discussions with other departments, such as our customer services department, who at the moment have trainees who are trained by TAFE, but they also have staff who have current Certificate 4s and are interested in training, so it may be that they want to do their own in-house training. So that course would be added to the scope of the council RTO, which is the one we're using at the moment. We can form partnerships with other organisations. Certainly we can increase our contacts with local small businesses. We do get requests often, such as from the local butcher, to say, I've got a young person who I'd like to take on as a trainee, but I think he's got problems with either numeracy or literacy, and I need to know if he can progress before I'm prepared to fill out the paperwork and take him on as a trainee. And I don't know whether you know, well I didn't, but I now know because last year we had a rush of butcher's apprentices, that one of the first jobs for a butcher's apprentice is to mix up the sausages. And if you don't understand ratio and proportion, your sausages are going to be really interesting. So we can form those sorts of relationships. Our community population is changing and diverse. It's becoming more multicultural. So we have to keep up with that. In other words, we're going to be continually changing. Thank you.
So, do you have any comments or questions, or you're all exhausted? Yes, Jane. There's a microphone there. Thank you.
There's been some discussion in a professional development forum on LinkedIn around public library services for the homeless and looking at ways of serving the homeless. So I'd like to ask Kathleen, it's very good to have a footpath library that actually reaches the homeless where they are, but thinking about, well, how could public libraries become a service for the homeless? And no, we're not social workers, that's not what I'm saying, but with an email address and a contact, the homeless should be able to join.
I think so, just speaking to
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. I think that there are a lot of benefits that homeless people could have from coming into regular libraries, and there's Wi-Fi and there's all those things that the footpath library can't offer, and obviously bigger book collections. But I think that there's a perception that they're not welcome in public libraries, not because of the way staff are or anything like that. I mean, I'm a librarian, I think I'm pretty nice. But more because of things like overdues, you might have to pay something if you lose an item. So I think it's breaking down those barriers. So I think it would be, really worthwhile for the footpath library and public libraries to work to kind of partner and to find out how we can cross-promote those services to get homeless people to, have access to all the benefits that public libraries can offer.
Thank you. There's one right up the back there.
Hi, it's Sharon here from Bellingen Library down south, not as south as Tasmania, but almost there. Just a question for Robin. Do you think the success of the 2610 program would have been as good had the statistics not supported the need for the program? And Do you think we're almost being too reactive instead of being proactive to get on these issues before they become a statistical reality?
Good question. Our statistic isn't much worse than yours, so don't take any comfort from Tasmania. I think part of what we need to do now is to say, we all have to let go of our middle class comfortable assumptions about what people need and want. Some people are perfectly happy, fulfilled at level 1. Far be it for any of us to say you need to improve your skills. But if people want to, for some reason, because they're the person who will drive a log truck in the middle of Tasmania for 30 years and all of a sudden we've cut the trees down and there's nothing left to do, and they can't get another job, then we should be there for the support. There's no denying that.
Individually, can I interrupt and say, individually, it's perfectly okay for people to stay at level 1. As a country, we can't afford for people to stay at level 1, can we?
No, we can't. No, we need to raise the levels, and we're doing the same thing in Tasmania. We're looking at our new state government, and we're talking about job readiness and productivity and all those things they want to hear. It's actually quite true. We are not going to turn around the Tasmanian economy, which is in a woeful state and is in transition. And if we don't do that soon, we'll all be moving to the Sunshine Coast.
But am I right? Sorry, I'm not sure. Where are you? Valentin. Yeah. No, I didn't mean that. I mean, I couldn't find you in the room. Was the nut of your question actually, was the 1 in 2 the impetus that funders listen to? That was the nut of the question?
That's right, yeah, because I'm just interested, because a lot of the grants that you go for, you need the evidence to be able to get the money, but really we should be getting the money before the evidence is there. Because, it's like we're waiting for the problem to happen and be an embarrassment before we react to it. And it's also the dealing, like we're always focusing on the students in school, but what about those that are already there? How do we not forget them? I know it all starts in that level when we start a chain reaction if we don't deal with it in the school, but there's also the people that are already there.
Thanks. Yeah, got it, Robin.
I'll just draw your attention to the glossy annual report that I carry 10.5 kilos in my suitcase. Please take one and look at it. It's really interesting. Yes, we know about the statistic, but what happened, it took 8 months to get this annual report published because their results were so bad. So the first thing is that, we know that the problem's there, and the government committed a lot of money and a lot of permanent government jobs, but we haven't made the progress we said we'd make. And this is the real challenge. And if you look at that annual report, it's got lots of pretty pictures and lots of nice, and everything's in 12 font at least. But if you go to the back, the measures are not good enough yet.
And why is that, Robin? Why haven't you made the impact you wanted to?
Because people haven't come forward, we haven't destigmatised it enough. If you live in a small country town, if you live in Oaklands, in the middle of Tasmania, you're not going to come to the local branch library, which is attached to the school, and say to the literacy coordinator, I need help, because everybody in the room knows who you are. We still haven't done that, but we are also finding the people who do come, who are often referred because of compliance, their levels are so low, they don't move up one level on the ACSF quickly enough. So that's why some work's being done nationally on a finer gradation of that framework, so we can measure smaller incremental.
I as I said, it's not a quick fix. You know, if it's a very low-level person, we would anticipate at least 18 months.
And it goes back to this morning in the group, we were talking about celebrating small wins in small windows of time rather than relying on longitudinal studies. So it's again the smaller gradation and celebrating quick wins. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Would you, any of you like to say anything else? Nothing? Nothing? That feels like a natural place to finish. So it's been a big day for some of us and a big afternoon for you. Just a few thanks. Thanks to Jane Harrow, and I was interested to talk at afternoon tea and get some sort of sense of how people found it. And I had comments like, it wasn't what I expected, but I thoroughly enjoyed it and I found it very stimulating. So, you know, it'd be interesting to hear some other points, but thanks to Jane. Thanks to Miles, and I know people are keen to hear more from you. Thanks to Jan, who's over there. Terrific to hear about that work. And to our three speakers, to Robin for that 2610 and all the best with it. To Kathleen, all the best with you and your PhD. Is your PhD around footpath libraries?
Footpath libraries, but it's around the same space.
Great. And congratulations, you're obviously not one of the 44 and declining. Could you please thank all the guests that we've had today?